The clinical white lights of the office seemed to hum with a quiet intensity as Dr. John looked over the file in his hands. Across from him sat a man in his late 60s, a man who felt vibrant, active, and full of life. He had come in for a routine checkup, expecting a clean bill of health, but Dr. John knew that behind the standard normal checkmarks on a typical lab report, a different story was often waiting to be told, or worse, a misleading one was being written. "Did you know," Dr. John began, his voice steady and resonant, "that a single routine blood test, one you may be taking every year without a second thought, could be quietly misleading your doctor, triggering unnecessary treatments, and putting your health at risk without you ever feeling a thing?" He paused, letting the weight of the statement settle in the room. For Americans over 60, this isn't just a possibility, it is an unsettling reality hidden deep within our modern medical system. He leaned forward, his eyes reflecting a mix of concern and authority. We live in an era where seniors are frequently over-tested in ways that create a spiral of confusion and anxiety. We chase numbers that don't matter, leading to misdiagnoses and fear. Yet at the very same time, the tests that could actually save your life, the ones that predict heart attacks, strokes, and kidney failure years before a single symptom appears, are rarely even mentioned.
"It is a dangerous imbalance," he continued, looking directly at the camera as if reaching out to every senior across the country. "It leaves you believing you are perfectly fine, when in truth, no one has looked in the places that matter most. Tonight, we are going to pull back the curtain. We are going to uncover the 4 blood tests seniors should avoid and the 4 tests every older adult must get. What you learn here today could completely change the course of your health from this moment forward. Before we dive into these truths, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on the bell. If you're ready to take back control of your health, type 1 in the comments below."
"Let's start with the rituals we've been told are mandatory," Dr. John said, pacing slowly across the room. First on the list is the annual PSA screening for prostate cancer. For decades, men over 60 have treated this test like a sacred safeguard. But here is the truth that rarely makes it out of the exam room. In older men, PSA levels can rise due to simple inflammation, a recent bike ride, or a benign enlargement that would never have shortened your life. He stopped and rested his hand on a chair. The danger isn't the cancer, it's the cascade of intervention. One slightly high number leads to a biopsy, then another, and eventually to surgeries that carry risks of infection and incontinence. I remember Harold, a 72-year-old veteran from Ohio. He was a fit, active man until a routine PSA test came back marginally high. He was pushed into a surgery he likely never needed for a tumor that was growing so slowly it would have stayed silent forever. Harold looked at me months later, struggling with complications, and said, "Dr. John, I went in feeling like a young man and came out with a life I don't recognize." He lost his peace and his dignity over a number that didn't tell the whole story. Then, Dr. John continued, we have the cycle of over-frequent vitamin D testing. We've been told it's the miracle vitamin, so many seniors are tested every few months. But when a doctor sees a small seasonal dip, they often prescribe massive aggressive doses.
This is how someone like Margaret, a retired teacher from Arizona, ends up in trouble. After a winter test showed a minor deficiency, she was put on high-dose supplements. Within a year, she wasn't feeling healthier. She was in the hospital with excruciating kidney stones caused by calcium buildup. We are turning normal, aging fluctuations into medical emergencies, and in the process, we are stressing the very organs we are trying to protect.
As we move further into this list, Dr. John said, his voice dropping into a tone of caution, we encounter a maze that traps thousands of seniors every year, overly detailed thyroid panels. It often starts with a simple complaint. Maybe you've been feeling a bit more sluggish this winter, or you've noticed a slight change in your weight. In an effort to be thorough, a doctor might order an expanded workup, looking at markers like reverse T3 or T3 uptake. While these sound impressively scientific, they are often the beginning of a dangerous misunderstanding. He leaned back against his desk, crossing his arms. The reality of aging is that your thyroid naturally slows down. It is a part of the body's wisdom, adjusting its pace as the decades pass. But when a physician treats these hypersensitive lab values instead of the person standing in front of them, they often prescribe thyroid hormones that your body isn't asking for. This can push an older heart into dangerous rhythms, trigger unexplained anxiety, and even accelerate bone loss. I'll never forget Robert, a 74-year-old widower from Minnesota. Robert was a calm, steady man, but after an expanded thyroid panel labeled him borderline, he was started on medication. Within months, he was suffering from terrifying heart palpitations and weight loss. He told me, "I thought I was fixing my fatigue, but the treatment nearly cost me my independence."
His original markers were perfectly normal for a man his age, but the noise in the detailed test misled his physician. Finally, we must address the high-sensitivity CRP test, Dr. John continued, his expression hardening. This is an inflammation marker meant to predict heart disease, but it has a massive flaw for seniors. It is far too sensitive. If you take this test while you have a lingering cold, a flare-up of arthritis, or even a simple bruise from a fall, the number will skyrocket. Eleanor, a grandmother from Michigan, saw her CRP result come back 4 times higher than normal after a winter flu. She spent the next month trapped in a spiral of fear, undergoing treadmill stress tests and echocardiograms she never needed. When she found out her heart was fine, she whispered, "I lost a month of my life to worry over nothing." These tests can be powerful tools, but when used without context, they become a source of turmoil rather than health.
Now, we pivot from the noise to the truth, Dr. John said, his voice taking on a tone of renewed hope and clarity. While some tests create unnecessary fear, there are others, powerful, life-saving markers that are quietly ignored by the standard medical machine. The first is a test called ApoB. For decades, we've been told to watch our LDL cholesterol, but LDL is a broad estimate. ApoB is the actual smoke detector. It counts the specific particles that physically wedge themselves into your artery walls to cause heart attacks. I think of Linda, a 69-year-old grandmother from Colorado. Her standard cholesterol was always perfect, so her doctor told her she was safe. But because her daughter insisted, she got an ApoB test. The result was dangerously high. That test didn't just give her a number, it gave her the chance to intervene before a major cardiac event stole her future. He stepped closer to the desk, his expression intent. Then there is the HS troponin test. In an ER, this is used to diagnose a heart attack in progress, but for you, its greatest value is as a whisper from the heart. It can detect microscopic heart muscle stress years before you ever feel a chest pain. It's how we caught early dysfunction in James, a retired firefighter. He felt just a little tired, but the HS troponin revealed a heart that was struggling in silence. By catching it then, we prevented a catastrophe. Beyond the heart, Dr.
John continued, "We must look at the omega-3 index and the UACR urine test. Most seniors take fish oil, but they have no idea if it's actually working. The omega-3 index tells us how much inflammation is burning inside your cells. And the UACR? It's the canary in the coal mine for your kidneys. Most people only find out their kidneys are failing when half their function is already gone. Henry from Pennsylvania assumed his kidneys were fine because his blood work looked normal. But the UACR caught the early propane leaks that blood tests missed. It gave him back the 5 years of health he was about to lose. These aren't just tests. They are the early warning systems that keep you standing strong while others are left wondering what went wrong."
We have stood at the crossroads of modern medicine today, Dr. John said, his voice resonant and filled with a profound sense of purpose. He sat on the edge of his mahogany desk, looking directly at the camera with a warm, steady gaze. On one side, we saw the noise, the tests that lead to a maze of confusion and unnecessary procedures. On the other, we found the signal, the essential markers that offer you a true roadmap for a long, vibrant life. But the most important thing I want you to understand is that these aren't just medical data points, they are the guardians of your freedom. He paused, letting the silence emphasize his next words. As we cross into our 60s, 70s, and 80s, the goal of medicine should shift from simply treating numbers to protecting the life you've worked so hard to build. Aging doesn't have to be a slow descent into uncertainty or a constant state of medical anxiety. When you demand tests like ApoB, HS troponin, the omega-3 index, and the UACR,
You are no longer a passive passenger in your health journey. You become the captain of the ship. You are acting with foresight, catching the smallest cracks in the foundation before the entire house begins to shake. Imagine the peace of mind, he continued, a gentle smile appearing, of knowing exactly how your heart is breathing, how your kidneys are filtering, and how your body is managing inflammation. This knowledge is what separates a senior who lives cautiously from one who lives fully and authentically. It is the difference between reacting to a crisis in the ER and spending your afternoon in the garden or with your grandchildren, knowing you are safe. You have the right to these answers. You have the right to age with clarity and dignity. This is your blueprint for a stronger, longer life, Dr. John concluded, leaning forward. Take these lessons to heart. I want to hear from you now. Take a moment to reflect and share one thing you've learned today in the comments. Let's support each other on this path toward the truth. If you found this valuable, please type 1 and share this with someone you love. Your kidneys, your heart, and your future self will thank you. I'm Dr. John, and here's to living life on your own terms.